is another edition of Too Good for Drugs, 7th grade. So in our last lesson, we talked about the negative effects of alcohol use on the teenage brain and body. We tagged along with alcohol to a dance party. Now, alcohol had a lot of negative consequences of using alcohol. Now, today, we're going to talk about a drug that people often have misperceptions and false expectations about. The messages portrayed in the media and in society about this drug are often unreliable and misleading. So first, let's identify where most teenagers get their information about drugs and drug use. Most teenagers get their information through parents, coaches, teachers, siblings, the news, TV, neighbors, magazines, music, radio, and even doctors. Now, out of all those resources, which ones do you think that are the most reliable sources? You got to think. The most reliable and accurate sources are supported by scientific evidence. So, for example, TV, magazines, and internet sources may not be reliable sources. Now, some sources are much more accurate than others. Unfortunately, you may come across an accurate message just as often, maybe even more often than accurate ones. So what's the difference between a fact and a myth? Well, a fact is something that has been proven to be true. A myth is something many people believe to be true without any facts to prove it. So let's find out if you can know the difference between myths and fact. And I want you to open your workbook to page 20 in the section titled Marijuana, the Real Deal. And these are 10 statements you might hear people say about marijuana. And some of these statements are myths and some of these are facts. So let's go over them. So the first one says, almost all teenagers use marijuana. Is that a myth or a fact? And the answer to that is myth. Most teenagers do not use marijuana. And according to an annual national survey of middle school students, more than 80% of 8th graders disapprove of marijuana use, and less than 10% have tried in the past month. Now, number 2, marijuana is safe because it's all natural. Myth or fact? That is a myth. Marijuana is natural, and it comes from a plant called cannabis sativa. However, just because something is natural is not necessarily safe. Poison ivy, snakes, tornadoes, and all are all natural, but they are not safe. And marijuana contains a mind-altering substance called tetrahydrocannabinol, also short for THC. Now, number 3, marijuana use impairs reaction time, depth perception, concentration, and all of which are necessary to safely drive a car. So with number 3, myth or fact, marijuana use affects driving ability, and that is fact. Number 4, the effects of marijuana use only last for an hour or 2. And that is a myth. The primary chemical component of marijuana is THC. And THC attracted to fatty parts of the body, including the brain and the reproductive organs. And it can stay in the body, especially the brain and reproductive organs, for up to 30 days after use. Number 5, marijuana isn't harmful because it's legal to use in several states. Myth or fact? The answer to that is myth. Now, as of right now in the state of Virginia, and the laws will change in the summer, it is against federal law to purchase, grow, carry, or use marijuana because of the harm it can cause. However, some scientists discovered some effects of CBD and low amounts of THC can be useful in preventing and treating certain medical conditions. Therefore, in some states, marijuana use and limited possession permitted under the guidance of licensed medical professionals and when dispensed from approved dispensary. Now, some states do allow recreational use, and recreational use is just for the purpose of getting high. But just like alcohol, it's not legal for people under the age of 21 to use. Number 6, marijuana use slows down the heart rate, so it's relaxing. And the answer to that is myth. Now, marijuana makes the heart rate beat up to 50% faster than normal. The increased heart rate can result in low blood supply to the heart and can cause chest pains. 7, marijuana is not addictive, and that is a myth. Now, addiction can be physical or psychological, and regular users of marijuana are psychologically addicted to marijuana. Number 8, Marijuana smoke can be harmful to the lungs, and that is fact. Smoke is smoke, whether it comes from tobacco, marijuana, or a burning building. And smoke in your lungs can cause respiratory problems. Number 9, marijuana use affects a person's ability to learn and recall information. The answer is fact. THC attaches to receptors in the brain and blocks the process of learning and memory. Number 10, THC affects adult brain and the adolescent brain in the same way. And the answer to that is myth. THC stays in the receptors of the brain longer in the adolescent brain than the adult brain. And the effects of THC are permanent in the adolescent's brain because the brain is still developing. Now, I want everybody to look on page 21 where it says the effects of THC. We're going to read different cases of teenagers who are affected by THC. So we're going to write down the activity, the effects of THC, and the area of brain it might affect, all right? So let's do the first one, which is Carlos. Now, Carlos just got his driver's license and a new car. So the activity is driving, and the effect of THC use is slow reaction time could cause Carlos to crash. And the area of the brain that's impaired is cerebellum. Now, number 2, Alicia studies hard because she wants to make straight A's. The activity is studying to earn straight A's, and the effects of THC use is THC can interfere with her ability to learn and remember what she studied, which might cause her grades to drop. And the area of the brain that's impaired is the hippocampus. Number 3, John is the goalie on his school's soccer team. Now the activity is goalie for his school's soccer team, and effects of THC use could be his slow reaction time, could result in other teams scoring a lot of goals, causing his team to lose. And there's many areas of the brain that are impaired with this one, and it's the prefrontal cortex, cerebellum, and the hypothalamus. And 4, Terrell wants to get better at playing video games so he can compete with his friends. And the activity is playing video games, and the effects of THC use, is also slow reaction time could cause him to respond slowly and lose the game. And areas of the brain that are impaired are cerebellum and hippocampus. Then finally 5, Tammy has an interview for a job at the Pizza Palace. Activity is interviewing for a job, and the effects of THC use is she might get anxious and have an anxiety attack during the interview. Also, she might not answer the questions well during the interview and might not get the job. And the areas of the brain that are affected are the prefrontal cortex. Now, the next time you hear someone talk about marijuana, think about the facts you learned today. And in our next lesson, we'll discuss the harmful effects of abusing prescription and over-the-counter drugs.